Okay, it's started. Hello, how are you? I am Nikita, and I'm not exactly sure where to look. But this is the inaugural episode of Yoni Talk, the new podcast on Just You Soap Company's YouTube channel. Yay! So totally excited. See, we got a mixer with the clap on. I think that's laughing. I hit the wrong one. You know what? This is what happens when he's supposed to be engineering. My gosh. And that's not it either. Just stop. Don't do anything else. All right. So, inaugural episode of Yoni Talk. It is a podcast that is for women, by women, who we are, our desires, but most of all, the importance of living a healthy, happy life. And as you see, we're going to do some laughing and we're going to do some, have some real conversations. But I thought that it would be pertinent for us to do this. So, we have the soap videos and all those things on our channel, but I thought, we need a podcast that is about women, right? When I first told Mr. about this supervisor about it, he thought I was going to be talking about Yoni soap. And I was like, no, there's a little bit more to it than just that. So if you know anything about me, and if you don't know anything about me, you're going to find out. I like to lay foundations. I like to know what are we standing on when we do whatever it is that we're doing. So in order for Yoni Talk to really have a direction and to go where it needed to go, I thought we needed to lay the foundation of what is a Yoni and what is Yoni health, right? And the only way you can do that is to talk to a professional. Duh. So I am blessed to know someone who is an awesome nurse practitioner. So she has this, graciously accepted the invitation to have a conversation with us about what the Yoni is and why we should be healthy. We'll just say it like that. She's going to she's going to give us the tea. We're going to say it like that. So we're going to be talking with nurse practitioner Maria Lattimore. She's been nursing since 2008. She received her associate's degree in nursing from Columbus State Community College in Ohio. She got her bachelor's of science in nursing from Aquinas College here in Tennessee, and her master's of science in nursing from Tennessee State University. Go Big Blue. They just won 2 Grammys. She's worked in the areas of urgent care, cardiology, as well as general and vascular surgery. She has one son who is completing a doctorate in biomedical engineering. He's also a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and a daughter who will graduate this spring. Sis is graduating a year early with a bachelor's in environmental science with a minor in Spanish. So if you haven't figured it out already, the kids are really smart. And the mama's really smart too. She enjoys spending time with her family and traveling, as well as swimming, kayaking, and hiking. So without further ado, we are going to bring on nurse practitioner, the beautiful Maria Lattimore. See, if he had figured out
Hello.
how to do the hand claps, he could have did the hand clap.
That's
You can do
all
the
right.
There you go. Let it play.
I like that. That was really good. Congratulations on the 2 Grammys. I did see that.
Yeah, it
That's
is so totally
awesome.
awesome. It is. I'm proud of those kids.
Yes, I was impressed. Well,
Me
thank you for the
too.
amazing introduction.
You are so welcome. Thank you for accepting the invitation to be on. Greatly appreciated. When I came up with the concept of the podcast, and I thought the first thing we got to do is talk about what this thing the word that we're using, everybody's using for this soap. What
Okay.
we're saying, what we're talking about when we're saying, what this product is going to do for you and all this, but we need to really establish what it is that we're calling a Yoni, what it really is, what is the health that we need to have as women for, I guess I could say, our nether region and how that health affects us, overall.
Yeah.
So I thought the best person to do this is going to be Maria. So, like, literally, I thought of you. I said, that's who I need to ask
Well,
because
thank
she's
you.
smart and she's going to know. So, so
I
that is why I
appreciate it.
asked you. Yes, thank you. So, whenever you're ready to get started, I'll give you the
Okay.
floor.
So, what is a yoni? I guess is the first question. So, yoni in Sanskrit just refers or means womb, vagina, source, as well as abode. And so, in Hinduism, yoni is the symbol of the goddess, I believe you pronounce it Shakti, the feminine generative power, and as the goddess, the consort of Shiva. So basically, when you're referring to yoni, you're referring to your vagina, your womb, your source of life. And so that's where the word yoni comes from. And so just with looking at yoni and the health of one's yoni, um, I guess the first thing we need to define is what is yoni health. In other words, what constitutes a healthy vagina? So your typical vagina is acidic, so it has a pH that can be typically 3.8 to 4.5. Now, this may change with age, as you know, women approach menopause and things like that. Um, it is normal for all vaginas to have small amounts of vaginal discharge. This discharge should be non odorous. It's typically either clear, sometimes it can have like a whitish yellow. There's no, again, no odor, no itching with this. And that's the body's natural discharge. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't do anything with it, it's perfectly normal. Um, and so, one thing we want to talk about is how you can protect your vaginal health. So, some of the things you can do is, maintain a healthy, balanced diet, drink plenty of fluids. So, many people, like if you eat something sugary or if you eat fish, a lot of times they may notice that their urine and things may smell like something that they ate, things like asparagus, things like that. And so it's important that you eat healthy and you watch your amount of alcohol intake, because all of those things, of course, will affect your vaginal health. Obviously, another thing is safe sex practices, and we'll get more into that further along. But you want to make sure that, if you are having um, intimacy with a partner, that you guys are practicing safe sex. Make sure that you know each other's status. Make sure that, you're protecting yourself as well as your partner. Um, Also, having your regular primary care and or your gynecologic visits. I know many primary care doctors also do the pap smears and the vaginal exams. And if your
Hmm.
PCP does that, then that's great. But if not, you can ask them to refer you to a gynecologist who will administer that exam to make sure that cells are healthy in the cervix. You're not looking at any type of alterations that could be occurring that could lead to cervical cancer and things along that line. So more into what affects your yoni health, things like feminine products, such as the washes that we see in every store. There's a plethora of brands and
Hmm.
scents, as well as douching. The issue with these are that they can cause an imbalance in the body's normal flora. And when you throw that imbalance off, what happens is you're changing your pH. And so now your vagina is more susceptible to bacteria that can thrive there. And then you end up with, different types of discharge, things that may need to be treated with medication, yeast infections along those lines. Um, lubricants, those are okay to use, but we want to make sure, especially, when you're using a lubricant and you're having protected sex, make sure it's a water-based lubricant, because otherwise the petroleum-based lubricants, they can degrade the condom, and then that defeats the purpose, and it's no longer protecting you. You can also use coconut oil as a lubricant. That is okay as well. And then further into, just safe sex practices, it's important to know that, you know, these STDs have long-term consequences,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you continue to get them repeatedly. So not only do they affect your vaginal health, not only do they affect your partner, but they affect your reproductive health. So they can lead to things like cancer, which we've seen a lot of with the HPV and the push for getting now girls and boys vaccinated with the HPV vaccine, as well as having fertility issues. So anytime you are, suspicious of, having a STD, or even just think that you may have been exposed to one, I definitely encourage, men and women to
Mm-hmm.
make an appointment. And if you don't have a PCP, you can go to the health department. There's several clinics that will provide testing at little to no cost for you. Other things that affect the vaginal health would include foreign objects, specifically those made of like semi-porous material like jade and onyx. I know that with the push of Yoni Health, we've seen a lot of these Yoni eggs that
Mm-hmm.
are being used quite a bit by celebrities. Um, the issue of those is there's a few. So one, the semi-porous material like the jade and the onyx. Semi-porous means um, bacteria. There's space for bacteria to get in and it's difficult to clean that. And so now you have an area where bacteria is thriving and growing,
Mm-hmm.
and you're now placing that back into the vagina. And then
Ew.
you remove it and you attempt to clean it, but you're not cleaning that thoroughly because, again, it's semi porous. And so then you're constantly now just putting bacteria in and out your vagina. Also, it's thought that these, the Kegel balls, the Yoni eggs, help to strengthen the pelvic floor muscles. The problem is that the constant clenching of the pelvic floor muscle, so that constant contraction, it doesn't help the pelvic floor muscle.
Mm.
If you think of it like weightlifting, it's that contraction and release that strengthens the pelvic floor muscle. So just walking around constantly with your, basically doing a Kegel all day long, nonstop, never releasing, that's not going to give you that strength that you want it to. Um, Medical conditions obviously can affect your yoni health, things like pregnancy, menopause, having irregular menses. Um, of course, during this time, hormones are changing, they're fluctuating. And so during this time, you can also see some changes with your yoni health. You may notice, obviously, during your menses, whether it's right before, you may have a change in the discharge consistency. Some of those changes are normal. Again, you should never smell any odor. You should never have, any itching or burning or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to go back to the foreign objects just for a second. Another issue is too, if you're not careful inserting things, you can also cause little tears in the vagina, which also, again, makes it more susceptible to bacteria
Mm-hmm.
breeding there. So medications, when you look at obviously antibiotics, I'm sure especially a lot of women, when given antibiotics, they typically, some of them, are very, very sensitive and susceptible to having a yeast infection. And that's because that antibiotic, while you need
Yeah.
it, it does throw the normal flora of the vagina off. Birth control, antidepressants, medications for anxiety. Um, those are things that again lead to, they can cause yeast infections, vaginitis, vaginosis, things along that line that can be very irritating to the vagina. And then lastly, we want to know how your man affects your yoni health. So, semen has a pH of about 7 to 8. And so that's basically like the pH of regular water, not the alkalinic water. And
Okay.
so the body is so amazing that during sex, the pH of the vagina actually raises to accommodate the pH of the semen in order to make sure that the semen is not destroyed before it reaches the egg for fertilization. And
Hmm.
so if the pH of the vagina remains high, then of course it's more susceptible to the bacterial growth, which can lead to bacterial vaginitis, bacterial vaginosis, which are the most common uh,
Hmm.
diseases as far as with the pH and directly with sex. Typically, that's the most common. So it's important to make sure, again, you're doing and practicing safe sex practices. Make sure your partner is aware, that what he eats also um, will affect his semen and the pH of his semen as well, just like with women. And so, pretty much, I mean, to summarize it, if you had to think of the Yoni as a self cleaning oven. You
Hmm.
don't need to do anything, it does it all for itself. There's nothing to do. Okay. Typically, if you are ill, if you have something like the flu or things like that, it may throw your body, your Yoni pH off, but
Hmm.
it'll be okay. Like, don't leave the vagina alone. It will, it
And I
handles
think
itself. It
it handles
requires
itself.
no
Right.
maintenance, unless something is invading it. Like, just leave it be.
Right. And I think that is and it's crazy to me because I think there are still women even in this day and age who still don't know the difference between their vagina and the vulva and the labia and all that. They don't know the difference, so they're trying to clean, like literally clean the vagina, because when we talk about it, we speak of it in terms like it's the whole thing, and it's not. So
Correct. And so I wasn't sure, as far as anatomy, if you wanted me to get in that. But yeah, so with the female anatomy, obviously you have the labia major, which are the outer lips, the minor, and then, you have the vulva. And so it's important to remember when washing, you can clean those areas. You don't need to be aggressive. And that's it. Nothing should be actually going into the vagina. You don't
right.
need douching is not it's not recommended by gynecologists. It's not necessary. Um, and so, you know, I people are obsessed with scents. They like to
Hmm.
smell good, and the vagina is just leave it be. It doesn't require,
Right.
you to do anything. I see all these commercials for these, full body deodorants. Please just,
Hmm.
if
It's
you
not
work out,
right.
that's a normal. You're going to work out, you're going to sweat. The sweat
Right.
smells, well, because you're working out, there's bacteria on your body. Okay, go home and take a shower. Like,
Right.
you don't just leave the vagina alone.
Right.
Like, and if you've ever cleaned an oven that is self cleaning, for example, I like to tell people, like, think of it like if you spray oven cleaner in a self cleaning oven and then you push that clean button, then all of a sudden you smell all these fumes that are just about
Hmm.
going to kill you if you don't open up
Hmm.
a window. So that's
Right.
what you're doing to the vagina. You're putting things in it and it doesn't need it, it doesn't require it. Just
Hmm.
let it be.
Right. Leave it alone. Her said,
Let
leave
it
her alone.
be. Yeah, it
So
will
I
thank
have some.
you.
Right. Well, thank you. So I have some questions. That I was jotting down some notes when you were going through the slides.
Mhm.
So one of them is, so I've heard of bacterial vaginosis, but I haven't necessarily heard of the vaginitis. So is it the same thing
They're
or
used interchangeably. Yeah.
okay, okay. And then the Kegel exercises. So, of course, for years we've heard the people talk about the Kegel exercises, but you
Mhm.
said something that was very interesting, and people may not know that it's not just that it's the whole part of it, the contraction and the release, right?
Correct.
That's supposed to
Yes.
strengthen that.
Yes.
And I didn't know until you said that people are walking around just holding the stuff in, but that's not what you do.
Yeah.
That's not
Well,
what you're supposed to do.
no. Well, because you
you,
have to
you
think, with gravity, if they're not clenching all the time, just with gravity, right?
right,
If you're not clenching, then obviously with gravity, that's not going to be very comfortable because
right,
the gravity is going to start to pull it down. So
right,
you're walking around with these objects in you. So you're literally clenched until you remove them. And it's not effective as you think
right.
it is.
And you're weakening it. You're actually making it weak,
Yeah.
because the more
It's
that you do
constantly
that,
contracted. Mhm.
it's right. You're so I'm like, how do you not even and we've got, as women, I mean, it's people, period, but especially as women, we've got to stop listening to people who are just trying to sell a product, and they
Correct.
have no concern about how it's going to affect you, because they're selling you this stuff and they're probably not even using it. Or they've already figured out, oh, wait a minute, this is jacked up. But they didn't tell you that it was jacked up, but you've
Mhm.
already gone and spent the money and you talk
Yeah.
crazy. Crazy. The other thing was the coconut oil. So um there are people who use something they call a Yoni oil, and basically is to help with moisturization, and
Mhm.
it can be made with coconut oil, olive oil. I think some people use probably either grapeseed oil, uh what is it called, I think they use like neem oil, all these different oils.
Mhm.
Do you think that coconut oil is the best one? Do you think if you start deep diving into these other ones that it will cause issues?
So I can't say per se because I haven't researched those other ones.
Hmm.
I would say with the coconut oil, I haven't seen any adverse reactions. I haven't seen, obviously, if you're allergic to coconut, please don't
Right,
use
right,
it.
right.
But as far as, any type of Yanni health concerns, I haven't seen that with the coconut oil. For me, I would just recommend keep it simple. I feel like when you
Hmm.
start to, too many options, people get overwhelmed and then you don't
Right.
know what to do. And then you're buying things that you may not necessarily need.
Hmm.
But I would say if they're considering those other Yanni oils, definitely have a conversation with your PCP or your gynecologist before doing that. And
Yes.
obviously,
And
if you notice any irritation, stop the use
stop.
of it.
Right, right. And that is really good, is that even before you start buying the products, or even if you've bought the product, you probably should make an appointment with your,
Yeah.
gynecologist, PCP, whichever one, to have a discussion and say, hey, I'm having this issue. This is what I
Mhm.
bought. What do you think about it? Because I've done that. This is the issue. This is what I'm gonna do about it. What you think? So they
Yeah.
can say that may not be good for you, or let me, what, do some research or whatever it is. But
Right.
that is so very important that and it concerns me even when I'm on Instagram and I'm talking about the Yanni soap that we make. I always put no medical claims are being made, and I've put up posts saying go to the doctor if you have, even if you have the odor, even though I tout that the soap helps with the odor, and it does. But even the stuff that I say go to the doctor though. Even if you
Yeah.
go to the doctor, get the antibiotic, and then you use the soap to help maintain. You can do that. I mean, they have medicines like uh Azo, they have pills to assist with what do you call it?
Oh, the UTIs.
UTI. Yeah. So they have a cranberry peel that you can take. And on the back
Mhm.
of the box, it says, this is not medicine. This is to assist you in your
Mhm.
urinary tract health. That's it. So it's the same thing with the Yanni bars. If you got issues, go to the doctor because it is
Correct.
not a medicine. Go to the
Right.
doctor, get checked out, and then use the stuff to help you maintain a clean and healthy, to help with your feminine hygiene regimen.
Right. I think it's also important to know, what is a normal odor for you, whether it's no
Mm-hmm.
odor or, if
Mm-hmm.
you may have a light odor versus, a odor that could indicate, that there's something going on. So
Right.
typically, if you start to smell, a strong, foul, like kind of fishy odor, definitely go to the doctor because typically that means you need to get an antibiotic and,
Mm-hmm.
get some treatment. But, uh, if it's just your normal, and it's not problematic for you, then I wouldn't make it a problem. But if it,
Right.
is interfering and causing, you know, s- some distress for you, then obviously,
Mm-hmm.
take it up with your doctor. But for the most part, know what's your normal because everyone is different.
Right. Exactly. And then that's the other thing too, is don't jump on the bandwagon. If it's not, if you don't have an issue with it, don't put cause one. don't don't create an issue
Right.
where
Right.
there isn't one. If you don't
Yeah.
need it, okay. Because and the other reason why I asked about the coconut oil, so you mentioned menopause. So I
Hmm.
think what I've heard is one of the things that happens with menopause is dryness. I'm gonna say vaginal dryness, but
Hmm.
you know what I mean. Okay, so because that's the word we use for the whole thing. But so what would you recommend for that? Would you recommend like just something like a coconut oil? I think one of the most popular things that people use is what is it called? KY jelly.
Hmm.
But what would you say would be the best thing in order to help you in that area, but not cause any irritation?
So if you are just, if obviously the coconut oil is good if you're looking at um, vaginal dryness as far
Hmm.
as externally. Please do
Right.
not
Please.
insert coconut oil into the vagina.
Right.
That's not what I'm saying. Like, don't, I'm not
No.
telling you to do that. The KY jelly, it is water based, most of those, as far as I've seen. And so that's fine to use. But if the dryness is, to the point where it's causing you discomfort, irritation, obviously, being intimate with your partner is going to be, it could be painful and not be
Hmm.
pleasurable for you. Definitely seek out also some options with your healthcare provider. Just not knowing a person's, medical history. So, there are
Right.
creams and things like that. But obviously, if you're someone who has a strong history of, cancer in the family, or if you've, had cancer, we obviously don't want you using an estrogen, you know,
Hmm.
taking estrogen or anything like that. So I would definitely say, depending on your health history, you can explore some options with your doctor and find out which is best for you and which works and is most convenient for you.
Cool. So I have, I think, one last question.
Okay.
We'll see, depending on how you answer. Then we'll see.
Okay. Okay.
But in your opinion, how important do you feel a woman's hygiene is in relation to her self-esteem? Because you mentioned something about the old that you should know what your vagina naturally smells like. It has a scent, whether it's just that or if it's something more. But I think there's so many women who are self-conscious about it. And you alluded to that. So how important do you think it is to a woman's overall self-esteem?
Well, I think it's extremely important. I mean, obviously, if you think back to like when you were in even grade school,
Mm-hmm.
um, you look back to the teasing and things like that. I mean, kids can be treacherous.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so even from, whatever you wore, if you forgot to swipe your deodorant, God
Right.
forbid, you're playing and then all of a sudden somebody, starts to talk, and then so it's the same thing. I think education is key. If you as a woman know, you know, what constitutes a healthy vagina, if you know what your normal is, then I don't think that you would be as self-conscious about it, because you know that this is my normal.
Right.
And typically, what is normal is not actually, other people cannot smell it. I think it's the
Mm-hmm.
self-consciousness that causes, that person to have like that lower self-esteem, because they're just self-conscious about it. But for the most part, no one would know. No, I mean, you can, most people who you can't, if we're together, I'm not like, oh, I smell you.
Right.
No, that's not how it works. So
Right.
unless there's something wrong as far with like your yoni health, then no one is actually um smelling what your vagina smells like. So I think the key is just education. Even in
Mm-hmm.
preparing for this, I had a friend who was here, and we were just talking about the things that um, just generationally they're not taught. Just
Right.
even with, and even in medical care, she was saying she went to um, I guess the one doctor, and they never said anything about, not douching. They never addressed it. And then she
Mm-hmm.
goes to another doctor, and they addressed that, whether, they asked her if she did those things or not. But that conversation occurred, and they told her like, no, don't do that. Like, it's not
Right.
necessary. And so I think as healthcare providers, we also need to do a little better with education, and not just assume that, everyone
Mm-hmm.
knows what constitutes a healthy vagina. I mean, everybody knows what isn't one, right? So, if
Right.
something isn't right, but we do need to talk about what constitutes a healthy vagina. How do you keep it healthy? How do you protect, your health and
Mm-hmm.
things like that? And again, just if you know what's normal and you know what your normal is, I feel like that will help you walk it more in confidence, especially as a female.
Yes. Yes. And I think, excuse me, you saying that, I think is so important for women who have the privilege, because it is a privilege to have young women in your life, and
Mhm.
if, especially if they listen to you, uh and if they do listen to you and they look up to you, it is so important, because you saying that, you're saying, you're talking, and I'm thinking to myself, did I have these conversations with them when they were younger? And I feel like I did, but now when we finish, I'm gonna ask them, do you think I talked to you about it enough?
So
I
the
have to ask
question
my
is,
daughters,
you talk to them, but did they listen?
right, and then there's
Like,
that.
were they receptive? Like,
Right.
so you have these conversations, and then you come back and they say, "No, I talked to you about that." "Oh, you did? When?"
Right.
"Well, just weren't listening." So,
Right, where were you?
I think, you have to remind yourself, especially like as a parent, and again, like you said, if you have young women in your life, you can't just have the conversation once.
Right.
When your child grows, is going through school, and you have the stranger danger talk and the talk about improper touching. I
Hmm.
didn't just have that one time. You consistently, remind them
Right.
of that, and you consistently check in, especially as they go to daycare, as they go to school, and
Hmm.
continue, like, you constantly having this talk, having this check in. And so it's the same way with, health. Like, you can't just have it once, because the first time they're probably not
Right.
receptive. And so you have to keep going back and checking in, and just, hey, is everything okay? How's your, and just how's your yoni health? How are things, going? Do you have any concerns? Or,
Hmm.
and continue just to have that conversation throughout.
That is so good. It's true. And even as grown women, we have to find people we can trust, because unfortunately some of us don't have people in our lives
Yeah.
that we could talk to, but you have to find people that you can trust. And if you have daughters, don't make it taboo to
Correct.
talk about down there. You have to
Mhm.
get over whatever it is, because you don't want your daughter going out into the world figuring anything out because she might not get the right information.
Misinformation. Yeah, that is
So
so
you do
true.
not want that. This was so great. Thank you so much. This was the perfect episode to start with because we
Well,
covered
thank you.
all the bases. We talked about all the things that needed to be talked about. So this was so awesome. And then let me say, as I always put on my posts, no medical claims are being made. This is not a substitution for you going to see your doctor,
Correct.
whether that's your primary care physician or your gynecologist. If you need to go see them, be sure to make an appointment. Hopefully, something was said that triggered you to say, you know what, I think I may need to go see them. And that's okay. Get your yearly checkup from both of them. Make it the same day. Go to the PCP and the gynecologist. Or if you have a general practitioner, they may actually do the gynecology too. So there you go.
That's right.
So thank you so much, Maria. I greatly appreciate your time. I thank you for being on. This may not be the last time that you're on. So thank you so very much. Because while you're talking, I thought about something else. I just have to jot down my notes about it. And then,
Okay.
but thank you so much. I hope that you have a totally awesome evening.
Thank
And
you.
guys, you're welcome. This is the end of our inaugural episode of Yoni Talk. As always, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Tell somebody else about this now because we're not done. We've got some more coming up. Also, don't forget to visit us, if you so please, at justyoussoapcompany.com. Be blessed and be in peace.